If you own a Nintendo Switch and you love adventure games, you're in the right place. Today, we're counting down the top 20 best adventure games on Switch. Big worlds, great stories, and unforgettable gameplay. Let's get into it. Okami HD is one of those games that hits different. You play as Amaterasu, the sun goddess reborn as a white wolf, on a mission to restore life and color to a world swallowed by darkness. The art style is straight up gorgeous. Every screen looks like a Japanese ink painting come to life. The core mechanic is the celestial brush. You literally pause the game and draw on the screen to cast magic. Slash enemies with a brush stroke, paint the sun to light up dark areas, bomb walls with a circle, restore dead plants with a single stroke. Combat flows between using your weapons and switching to the brush mid-fight. The world is huge, full of dungeons, side quests, and gods tied to the Chinese zodiac, who each teach you new brush powers. It's structured like a Zelda game. Travel to a region, fight the evil infecting it, take down a boss, move on. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is a wild, chaotic action RPG that doesn't play like anything else. The story kicks off when a dragon attacks your village, rips out your heart, and leaves you alive, making you the Arisen, the one chosen to hunt it down. The narrative is fairly straightforward, but that's not why you play it. You build a party of 4, your main character, plus 3 AI companions called pawns, and together you tear through an open world filled with goblins, griffins, cyclops, and dragons. The standout mechanic is that you can physically grab enemies. Smaller enemies get thrown off cliffs. Bigger ones, you climb them. You're climbing a griffin mid-flight, stabbing it while it tries to shake you off. Vocations let you switch between warrior, mage, archer, assassin, and more hybrid classes. The Bitter Black Isle expansion included in this version adds a brutal underground dungeon that'll push you hard. Skyrim on Switch is still wild to think about. You're playing one of the greatest open-world RPGs ever made on a handheld. You play as the Dragonborn, a hero born with the innate ability to absorb dragon souls and use powerful shouts called Thuum. The world is enormous: snow-capped mountains, dense forests, ancient Nordic ruins, and cities full of people with their own lives. The main quest has you tracking down a world-ending dragon, but the real game is everything around it: joining the Thieves Guild, becoming Archmage, leading a rebellion, or just wandering into a cave and clearing it out for fun. Combat is flexible: swords, magic, stealth, dual wielding, archery. You pick your style and the game builds around it. There are hundreds of quests, full voice dialogue, and dungeons that always feel rewarding to complete. The Switch version holds up well in handheld mode, and you even get motion controls for archery and fishing. Kingdom Come: Deliverance is nothing like your typical fantasy RPG. There are no dragons, no magic, no elves. You're Henry, a blacksmith's son living in 15th century Bohemia. When an invading army slaughters your family and burns your village, you survive by luck alone and find yourself drawn into a brutal civil war. The game treats history seriously. Armor works realistically. Combat takes skill and practice, and Henry starts out terrible at fighting because he's not a warrior, he's just a kid. You level up actual real-world skills like swordsmanship, lockpicking, reading, and even persuasion, all by doing them. Sword fighting is a precise, directional system. It's not just mashing buttons. You have to time blocks, ripostes, and feints. You also need to eat, sleep, and keep your gear clean. The open world is gorgeous and grounded, based on real locations in medieval Czech Republic. Quests branch in multiple directions with real consequences. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Set in Hyrule once again, Link finds himself with mysterious new powers after a catastrophic event tears the land apart. Sky Islands appear above, and shadowy depths open beneath the surface. The main hook is the Ultra Hand and Fuse abilities. Ultra Hand lets you pick up, rotate, and attach objects together to build anything you can imagine: rafts, flying machines, combat vehicles. Fuse lets you combine weapons and shields with found objects, making your gear unique. Recall rewinds the movement of objects, and Ascend lets you pass through ceilings. These 4 abilities interact with each other in endless ways, and the game rarely tells you the correct solution to a puzzle. You figure it out or create your own way through. The story is more emotionally layered this time, with flashback sequences that genuinely hit hard. The Sky Islands, Surface, and Depths are all distinct environments packed with shrines, caves, side quests, and secrets. Metroid Prime Remastered brings back one of the greatest first-person action-adventure games ever made, and it looks stunning on Switch. You play as Samus Aran, a bounty hunter stranded on the alien planet Talon 4 after space pirates awaken an ancient evil called Phazon. The game is first-person, but it plays nothing like a traditional shooter. It's exploration first. You're scanning environments for lore, solving puzzles, platforming through ancient ruins, and slowly unlocking abilities that let you reach new areas. The Morph Ball lets you roll into tight spaces and lay bombs. The Grapple Beam swings you across gaps. The Varia Suit protects you from heat. Every upgrade changes how you move through the world and where you can go. Combat is deliberate, locking onto enemies and cycling through beam weapons and missiles. Bosses require you to study their patterns and use the right tools. The Witcher 3 on Switch is an achievement in itself. One of the largest, most detailed RPGs ever made running on a handheld. You play as Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter for hire, traveling across a war-ravaged world, searching for his adopted daughter, Ciri, who is being hunted by an otherworldly force called the Wild Hunt. The world is enormous and dense. Massive cities, swampy marshlands, sun-soaked islands, and snowy mountain passes, all populated with characters who feel real. Side quests aren't filler. They have proper storylines, moral choices, and outcomes that actually matter. Combat blends fast swordplay with signs, which are combat spells like fire blasts, force pushes, and traps. Gwent, the in-game card game, is so good they made it its own standalone game. The 2 DLCs included Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, add dozens more hours, and are considered some of the best RPG content ever made.
Reminds me of a piece of yeah, almost like we never left Earth.
Octopath Traveler 2 is the kind of JRPG that respects your time and your intelligence. You choose from 8 different travelers, each from a different corner of the world, and explore their interwoven stories across a beautifully crafted HD 2D world. That visual style combines pixel art characters with 3D lighting and depth of field effects, and it looks incredible. Each character has 2 path actions abilities, used in towns to interact with NPCs. Thieves can steal items, merchants can buy information, hunters can provoke people into fights. These abilities vary between day and night, opening up different approaches to the same situation. Combat is turn-based with a break and boost system. Hit enemies with their weaknesses to shatter their shields and stun them, then use stored boost points to unleash massive damage. Every one of the 8 characters has a job class that can be mixed with secondary classes as you level up.
What's our plan? My spear shall strike through!
The LUNAR Remastered collection brings 2 beloved 90s JRPGs to modern platforms together for the first time. The first game, LUNAR Silver Star Story, follows Alex, a young guy from a small village who dreams of becoming a Dragon Master, the world's greatest hero. What starts as a classic adventure quickly grows into something much more personal, as the people he loves get pulled into a rising conflict involving the world's goddess and a shadowy threat called the Magic Emperor. The second game, LUNAR 2 Eternal Blue, takes place 1,000 years later and follows Hero, who discovers a mysterious girl named Lucia, connected to a force threatening to destroy the world. Both games are turn-based JRPGs with party-based combat and strong emphasis on character relationships and dialogue. The remaster adds widescreen support, enhanced pixel art, HD animated cutscenes, and completely new English voice acting. You can toggle between classic and remastered visuals at any time.
Dodge this!
Nine Souls is one of the sharpest, most intense 2D action games on Switch. Set in New Kunlun, a Taopunk world that blends Taoist mythology with cyberpunk technology, you play as Yi, a warrior who's been asleep for centuries, awakened by a human child and driven to hunt down 9 powerful rulers called the Souls, who have been oppressing humanity. The story is deep, full of lore and tragedy, told through fully voiced cutscenes and environmental details in a beautifully hand-drawn world. Combat is directly inspired by Sekiro. The core is deflection, not dodging. You time your parry to stagger enemies, charge up your talisman system to tag enemies with explosive marks, then trigger them for devastating burst damage. Yi uses martial arts, a divine bow for range, and Taoist talismans in combo. The world is Metroidvania style. You explore interconnected areas, gain new abilities, and backtrack to reach previously locked zones. Cat Quest 3 takes the series into pirate territory, and it's an absolute blast. You play as a cat privateer, basically a pirate sailing the Caribbean, an island-filled open sea, searching for the Northern Star, a legendary treasure. The world is split between sailing and landing on islands to explore on foot. Your ship can fight enemy vessels, upgrade its cannons and hull, and navigate the open water freely. On land, the 2.5D action RPG gameplay from the series returns with a more refined combat system. You now have proper attack combos, weapon swapping mid-fight, and a dodge roll. Spells, weapons, and trinkets all slot into a light build system, letting you customize how your character fights. Dungeons and caves hide gear, and optional bosses are scattered across the world for extra challenge. The story follows your cat versus the Pirate King and a horde of pirates, all told with relentless cat puns that are either endearing or groan-worthy, depending on your sense of humor.
Unlockable special attacks that can be found on your quest. So weigh an anchor and set sail for Catventure in Cat Quest 3!
Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a fully rebuilt remake of the year 2000 classic, and it's one of the biggest RPGs on Switch in 2026. The story centers on a world where your kingdom seems to be the only island left in an endless ocean. You play as the hero, and through a series of ancient stone fragments, you travel back in time to visit lands that once existed before disaster wiped them from the present. Each time period is its own self-contained story. A village under a curse, a city hiding a dark secret, a civilization collapsing from within. And restoring those places slowly rebuilds the present world. The remake uses a gorgeous diorama art style layered over Akira Toriyama's iconic character designs, making everything look like a handcrafted living storybook. The vocation system returns, letting you assign jobs to party members and mix skill trees. And the new moonlighting feature lets you equip 2 vocations at once, opening up deeper builds.
Take that!
Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is the definitive version of SMT5, and it's one of the most demanding and rewarding RPGs on Switch. You play as a high school student who gets dragged into a post-apocalyptic Tokyo overrun by demons, where you merge with a mysterious being called Okami to survive as a powerful being called the Nahobino. The game asks you hard questions about the nature of law, chaos, and what it means to choose the world you want to live in. Vengeance adds a whole second campaign, the Canon of Vengeance, with a new cast of characters, new story paths, and a different perspective on the apocalypse. Combat is the press turn system. Hit enemy weaknesses to gain extra turns. Miss or get hit in your weakness and lose turns. It punishes sloppy play hard. The demon negotiation system lets you recruit enemies by talking to them, answering their questions, and building a roster of hundreds of demons. Fusing demons together to create stronger ones is its own deep puzzle system.
The salvation of these cursed souls is my duty.
Even after everything that's happened, you still haven't given up.
Celeste is a precision platformer about climbing a mountain, but it's really about something much more personal. You play as Madeline, a young woman who decides to climb Celeste's mountain. And as the journey gets harder, the game makes it clear that the real obstacle isn't the mountain. It's the part of herself she's been running from. The story handles anxiety and self-doubt with real honesty, never feeling preachy or heavy-handed. The gameplay is razor sharp. You can run, jump, and air dash in 8 directions. That's your moveset. Each room is a contained puzzle using just those inputs, but the level design stacks complexity brilliantly. Screen after screen introduces a new hazard, a new surface, a new twist on the dash mechanic, and the difficulty climbs steadily without ever feeling cheap. Deaths are instant respawns with no load time. The B-sides and C-sides, hidden harder versions of each chapter, push the mechanics to their absolute limit for players who want a real challenge. Death's Door is an isometric action-adventure game that feels like a love letter to classic Zelda, but with its own identity. You play as a crow who works for a bureaucratic agency that collects the souls of the dead. Your assignment goes sideways when a powerful soul gets stolen, pulling you into a strange world where things that should have died long ago are still alive and refusing to move on. The tone is dark and dry. There's real wit in the writing, but there's also genuine melancholy woven through it. Combat uses a sword plus a small selection of magic spells. A firebomb, a lightning bolt, an arrow, a hookshot, and enemies require you to mix melee and ranged attacks strategically. Health doesn't regenerate automatically. You grow your own healing flowers at planted spots and harvest them during combat. Boss fights are big, multi-phase encounters that each feel distinct. Sea of Stars is a love letter to classic 16-bit JRPGs, specifically Chrono Trigger, but it brings enough of its own personality that it stands on its own completely. You play as Zale and Valir, two solstice warriors with power over the sun and moon, on a quest to stop an alchemist who creates flesh monsters for a god-level villain called the Fleshmancer. Combat is turn-based with an active element. Each attack can be timed for bonus damage, and enemies telegraph attacks with colored symbols, indicating which damage type will cancel them. Landing a timed block reduces damage or negates it entirely. The combo system between party members builds up live during combat and unlocks powerful joint attacks. The world is fully traversable, no invisible walls, with swimming, climbing, and even sailing between islands. Dungeons are full of environmental puzzles that use the character's elemental powers. Dragon Quest XI's is the gold standard for traditional JRPGs and one of the best games on Switch, full stop. You play as the Luminary, a young man who discovers on his coming-of-age day that he's the reincarnation of a legendary hero, and that his hometown and kingdom see him as a dark omen. What begins as a journey to prove his worth turns into an epic cross-world adventure to stop a world-ending calamity. The cast of companions you gather are all fully written characters with their own story arcs, backstories, and personalities, and their banter during travel makes the world feel alive. Combat is classic turn-based. Choose your actions, exploit enemy weaknesses, use abilities unlocked through a skill panel system. The orchestrated soundtrack in this version is sweeping and emotional. The Definitive Edition adds full voice acting, 2D retro mode, letting you play in classic pixel art style, extra story arcs for each party member, and quality of life improvements. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild launched with the Switch on day one and is still one of the best open-world games ever made. You wake up as Link with no memory, in a ruined kingdom 100 years after a catastrophe. Hyrule is completely open from the very start. You can climb any surface, glide on the paraglider, and go essentially anywhere you want the moment you leave the starting plateau. The physics and chemistry engine is what makes it special. Fire spreads through grass, metal conducts lightning, objects obey gravity, and nearly everything interacts with everything else. Shrines are bite-sized puzzle dungeons scattered across the map. There are 120 of them, each testing a different mechanic or combat concept. The 4 divine beasts replace traditional temples and require you to manipulate the entire structure as a puzzle. Weapons break, encouraging constant experimentation with what you pick up. Cooking combines ingredients for meals that give different stat boosts. Super Mario Odyssey is a masterclass in game design and one of the most joyful games ever made. Mario is back in a 3D platformer, but this time he's traveling the world in a hat-shaped spaceship with Cappy, a hat companion who changes everything. Throwing Cappy at enemies and objects lets Mario capture them. You can become a frog, a T-Rex, a chain chomp, a bullet bill, a taxi, and hundreds more. Each capture has completely different physics and controls, turning each one into a minigame in itself. The game visits multiple kingdoms: a big city, a desert, a cooking world, a snow kingdom, a food paradise, and each one is densely packed with power moons to collect, hidden areas, and secrets that reveal themselves the more carefully you look. The controls are tight and expressive. Triple jumps, ground pounds, long jumps, and Cappy throws chain together fluidly. Finding moons is never repetitive because the game invents new scenarios and mechanics constantly. You mark multiple enemies for simultaneous shots. Bounty hunting, dueling, gambling, and side missions flesh out the world without feeling like padding. But the real reason this game is number one is the story.
Bringing in all sorts of new folk like yourself.
Is that such a bad thing?
Change is only good when it makes things better.
20 incredible adventure games for your Nintendo Switch. Drop a comment with your favorites or what you'd add to the list. If this was helpful, a like and subscribe goes a long way. See you in the next one.